certainly what gave that gold price some impetus or some pullback rather on a Friday session was that jobs data over in the US that put risk on back at play, and what it did as well was see some strength filter through to the local unit with that risk on coming through. What did you make of the kind of move that we made on Friday's session and the ability for the local unit to sustain that kind of gain moving through this week?
Hi, Alishia. Well, certainly the payrolls number gave a huge boost to the rand, came within sight of the 750 level. And yes, the data certainly surprised on the upside to quite a large extent, in fact. And payrolls were always going to be a very important number. Everyone looks forward to them. And of course, the official unemployment rate also out on the same day. All the data combined seem to give some indication that the US economy is holding up much better than expected given the situation in Europe. And that, of course, led into an improvement in risk sentiment. And of course, we saw the rand strengthen quite substantially. As far as how sustainable we think this is, I mean, I think it's fair to say that the rand's rally has been largely unanticipated, and that's because it's not based on any fundamental factors. And when we think that, you know, rallies of this kind that seem to run ahead without a substantial underpinning are always bound for correction, and so we see that we think that the rand's current levels are unsustainable. It doesn't mean it won't strengthen further in the short term, but we do see a correction coming for the currency.
So with the rand up more than 6% on the greenback so far this year, what kind of trading band have you pegged out for this week at least?
Well, for this week, I think a lot is going to depend on what happens this morning. Of course, Greece is expected to announce some sort of resolution with its creditors. They've reportedly imposed a deadline that's about to expire fairly soon. So I think markets are probably going to wait and take their cue from that news. If we see some positive developments, then of course the rand could strengthen further. Having said that, you know, the 750 mark is quite an important one for the rand. It's the 200-day moving average, and we think that it will probably struggle to break this level to the downside. So that will probably provide some fierce resistance, and one would one would have to have quite a huge boost in risk on sentiment to break below that. So we'll probably see quite a more of an upwards direction in terms of the trading ranges. Although, as I said, there could also be some downward movement, some appreciation in the rand this week.
Just how closely are you watching the central bank moves this week as well? Because we've got the ECB announcing an interest rate decision come Thursday, and also we've got the BOE's asset purchase target being put on the table as well.
That's part of the reason why we see that there could be some rand strength this week, even though we think that the overall trajectory or bias should be towards rand weakness, and that's because we're expecting the BOE to announce an additional round of quantitative easing at this meeting. And of course, we've talked a lot about how liquidity is helping to fuel the current rally, so that of course could also feed into the market sentiment this week. As far as the ECB is concerned, we expect it to remain on its current path with its current stance with regard to engaging in long-term repos. So we're not expecting any huge announcements from them at this meeting.
Okay, when it comes to local data, it's a busy week ahead here in South Africa. We've got the net reserves figures coming through tomorrow. We've got South Africa's unemployment picture being factored in as well, and gold and mining production numbers to be released as well. Nomvuyo, your overall perspective on just how you see numbers coming through locally impacting currency dynamic?
Well, a lot of the numbers coming out this week are going to be production side indicators for December. That would be mining and manufacturing. And the rand, given the rand's earlier depreciation that occurred last year, we're expecting to see a bit of a bounce in the December numbers. So that could provide a bit of a boost to the currency should it seem that the economy isn't perhaps as weak as previously thought. And that's why we see some upside risk there. On the whole, though, I do think that probably the most attention is going to be focused on the unemployment data, since these are quarterly. And we do see some upside risk to this number. Of course, it has remained stubbornly high for quite a number of quarters, and we see some upside risk to that forecast.